Welcome to a Passport Profile podcast. Passport podcasts are a production of Passport to Joy and Connection, a program of the Creating Community Wellness Society in Victoria, British Columbia. My name is Kirk Schwartz, and I'm the program manager and media creator for Passport to Joy and Connection. Today's podcast is part one of my conversation with senior Marty Wall. He had a long and distinguished career at the University of Toronto and has taught at the University of Victoria as well. Marty is an executive board member, program coordinator, and volunteer with James Bay New Horizons in Victoria. And he pours tea and plays O Canada on the piano for James Bay New Horizon events. I sat down for a candid conversation with Marty. In the second part of this two-part podcast, we will talk about his life path and career. But today, we talk about his involvement at JBNH and how he realized that first impressions are not always the right impressions.
Okay, I'll tell you, when I first came to the center, I was almost deciding not to continue to stay here because I had a kind of bad experience. But I just came back because I met other people then, and it changed the whole thing for me. In fact, to the point where that's why I ended up being on the board. I'm still on the board now, which is strange considering how my reaction to this place when I first joined. But I met some interesting people and nice people, and people like you. I mean, you're a good person to know here at the New Horizons. And there are other people with striking backgrounds, because you meet them in a different context. You're meeting people here in a situation where it's purely social, and then you discover things about their background that, oh, I didn't realize that. You know.
So, would you say that for you, the center is primarily the social part and not so much any particular activity?
It's social. Well, the activities, I do the current events and the wisdom circle and meaningful conversations. Do you know about that?
I've heard about it. I haven't been yet.
Meaningful Conversation is a closed group. It didn't start off that way, but it is now. It involves maybe 6 or 7 people. Meets every week on Fridays. And what it is, essentially wisdom circle, but only the same 6 people all the time, and 6 or 7 people all the time, sitting around a round table and allowing people to talk without interrupting. And if there's silence, we accept the silence. That atmosphere is totally different from wisdom circle, which people are competitive and they talk, and if you're quiet, then suddenly other people will jump in, and it's a different atmosphere, a different ambiance. And I found that's good. It's more intimate. Few people, we get to know each other a lot more, and the conversations are different. The topics will be the same sometimes, but the nature of the conversation very different because of the intimacy. You sit around a table like this table with a little ball of light in the middle, lights are down, and we all sit around like this at the table. That's interesting. That's good.
How does one get to be part of the meaningful conversation group?
Look, what happened was I was there just at the time it was starting. And they mentioned, oh, we're starting this group, okay, I'll come, fine. I decided, oh, this is nice, I'll continue to do that. And then sometimes new people would come in, and then suddenly it evolved to a situation where there were only a limited number and no other people were allowed, because it changes everything. Once you have other people coming, it's not necessarily worse, but it's different. So it's an interesting group with interesting kinds of, and again, in that situation, people are predictable, as they are in Wisdom Circle. The styles, very distinctive. I can sort of picture, I know predict exactly how that person is going to behave and respond and all that. And that's true. So that's the group. And the final thing I just started doing for 3 weeks is they have this couples dancing. So I've been doing that. I came as single because Janice, my wife, doesn't want to do that. So I came in, and that's been kind of fun. I used to do Arthur Murray for a while, so I did some dancing, and it was nice coming back here. Muscle memory comes back. And everything is like cha-cha and this ballroom dancing, jitterbug. So I come on my own, but it's fine. It's kind of fun because it's physical and you move around and it's sociable and kind of neat. I do walking. Somebody I walk with every Thursday morning. We walk a pretty long distance in his neighborhood, Cabarrot Bay. It's a nice area to walk around. So I get that. And I know that Janice, my wife, loves to walk, so I'm always walking with her. And it's good. The walking, daily walking is very useful, very helpful.
Tell me about the wisdom circle.
Well, when I started with the Wisdom Circle, I was concerned. I joined it because I'd already been in one of the other groups, and they suggested that I come to Wisdom Circle, and I'd avoided it because I thought the name was pretentious. Wisdom Circle didn't sound like the sort of thing that I'd want to be a part of. But they persuaded me, and I came anyway. And I found it was a nice, congenial group. People each have their own ways of speaking. They would come out with things that were not related to, they had to not be related to current events, or things that are happening in the world, but more your feelings and your opinions and your views about things of that nature. So that's why I joined that. Your question was what? How
Just tell me about it, your impressions of Wisdom Circle and why you're doing it.
Okay, well, partly for social reasons. I like the idea of interacting with others, and since I've been in Victoria, I've looked for the ways of being able to do that, manage that, and to be able to interact with other people. I have a wife, and but I want to interact with others beyond that, and this seemed like a good place. Wisdom Circle was a discussion group. I like discussing. And I found it interesting because the people there, the ones who kept coming back, all had very distinctive personalities and styles of speaking in the group. Some were very brief, some were cogent, some were kind of meandering and all over the place. And I got to know them, their styles, because they were quite unique, and I found them interesting as people. Also because I was originally in an academic world in which people were competitive, people were, all were articulate, whereas here you have people from different backgrounds, all exposing very different natures of themselves. And I found that quite revealing and interesting to me. I didn't feel, I got out of the competitive role that I was so used to in the academic world. It was nice to be able to interact with people in a friendly manner. And that was a nice thing about Wisdom Circle. I remember complaining about the name, and they devoted almost a whole session to thinking of what other name it would be better than that. And the result of a 2-hour discussion was we left it as Wisdom Circle. So that goes to show.
You were a professor of psychology. Does Wisdom Circle fit into that, or is it something completely different from that?
It's completely different, really. In the academic world, the whole situation, the way people converse with each other is totally different. I had to learn how to interact with people here in this group, because it was quite different. The way in which you relate, it's much more competitive and more professional. Here there's something more casual. People would meander, converse in an informal way. In fact, I'd get impatient about it sometimes because I'm so used to the academic rules, the unstated rules for how we interact with one another. And also I was chair of the department of psychology, and as the chair you also have specific kinds of roles that you play also in addition to simply merely discussing. And you have to sort of rule the group. And the group sometimes are not easy to deal with. It's like herding cats.
What value do you think people get from Wisdom Circle?
I think the social interaction is what they mainly get out of it. I don't think people come away with insights from what they got, maybe on occasion. But basically, I think it's the fact that they're there with others socially, they're being respected, and they respect others, and people are have good discussions about things that are important to them. And also the fact that they all come from different backgrounds. Some are notably unacademic. So I had to get used to the fact that people argue in different modes, different ways that I was used to as an academic. You tolerate this after a while. You know, people. One of the things I notice that the argument, when people make arguments in the group, they argue on the basis of using as their evidence as examples, argument by example, so rather than by other things of which I was used to as in my scientific background. So that I found interesting. That people would meander and converse and talk about examples of people they knew as to manifest what it is that they were trying to say.
Would you say that people get to express ideas, because it's not about current events and it's not about anything like that. So they're expressing their ideas and feelings about their day-to-day, how they live day-to-day. Is that a fair?
That can be that. Usually a topic will come up, and people will address that topic from their own perspective. It'll be a personal perspective. Again, it's not based on politics or other things of that nature. And occasionally the chair or others will say, hey, you're getting beyond what we're talking about here. This is that. Save that for current events. You hear that quite often.
What have you had some favorite topics that have come up? There's some things that stand out in some discussions that stand out?
Yeah, I found are things, especially things that people that are socially not normally done in a situation like that with people who, that is, there's a trust that builds up. So you can talk about personal things that otherwise you would not relate ordinarily sitting in a coffee shop, say, talking to some people. And that I found revealing. People are able to show themselves things about their personal lives that you wouldn't expect people to normally be free and happy about talking about.
Are there any examples you'd feel okay sharing? Is there anything that comes to mind that wouldn't be, too identifiable or something that you could share as an example?
People talking about, for example, the problems they had because of in their lives, relationships they had with others. Somebody who had identity issues concerning their gender, things of this nature, personal issues like that, they were willing to reveal to those in the group whom they presumably trusted. And I found that quite striking. I found that, and I respected people to do that. And what I also liked is that the people who were receptive to this, and there was no sense that these people are going to go out and reveal it to everybody, or there's a sense of trust builds up in the area that what stays here, what we talk about here stays here. And I think that's been true. I don't think people have really gone about talking about these things.
Do things ever get heated and emotional?
Yes, they do. Occasionally, and the chair generally tries to sort of smooth things down. Occasionally, but not often. Very often what happens is that a person will be told that there are certain rules that we follow, that you only have a minute to say something or 2 minutes to say something, and you stop at that point. And usually the way people manifest their concerns are going silent rather than yelling out. And when somebody who normally talks quite a bit and is suddenly silent for a while and has an expression on their face, then you realize that they're going through something. And some of the topics that come up are fairly personal. Relationships, former relationships, the impact that these things have had on them, and how their current behavior is often is affected by these things that have happened. And there's often people respond to it and talk about their own experiences in relation to the topic at hand. And that's interesting. I find it, and it's non-academic, so it's a personal thing, and these are people coming from all varied backgrounds, and so the topics are interesting.
Wisdom Circle learn from each other as they talk about?
Yes, they do. Sometimes it's just a matter of a few people among each other who they say, well, we'll talk about this later and have a cup of coffee or something of that nature. Sometimes these are general things that come up and people sort of nod, as they're saying they've learned from this and experienced something they'll be able to apply to their own lives. So you see lots of examples like that. Other times you see people just totally bored. distant from what's happening, looking at their watches.
You get some social interaction out of it, but do you get any emotional feelings out of it, or any,
Well, it's hard to separate the social from the emotional, because there's certain emotional things too. I find certain people, their points of view about certain things repellent, but I discipline myself not to respond to that and to make sure that there's mutual respect among all of us, especially on those occasions when I chair the meeting. Try to do that. The respect is there even in cases where you might be personally offended. There are cases like that where people do, and you see this, people suddenly go silent and remain silent, who normally would be vocal and talkative. So you see this, yeah.
do you see the opposite as well, where people come to some agreement and like where there's...
Oh yes, you see all of these things that are happening, and not all at the same time. No, you do, and you see some people who you can tell that on the basis of what's the conversation is taking place among the whole group, that they will want to get together later, just one or two or three of them, to get together to talk about this further at some point.
Yeah, I guess what I'm getting at is if you see people getting positive affirmation out of the topics and the discussion.
More of that than the other, yes. I think there's a tendency for people to be try to be respectful and to provide reinforcement to the things that people are saying, especially if somebody is complaining or sad about some experience in their life. Others will come and try to give suggestions and offers of help of some sort or other, or things that they could even offer of advice of things that they can do to better their situation. So you see this, yes. Would
you recommend the Wisdom Circle for everybody, anybody, or are there people that maybe you wouldn't recommend it for too? So both sides of that.
Yes, I think I feel I'd be more likely to recommend it than to not recommend it to somebody. But there are some people there even who find it objectionable because they talk too much. They don't know. They interrupt. They break the rules. In other words, getting out. That I find annoying. And those people, if they were to withdraw, then I would not be particularly unhappy. Others, I think, they present a real positive thing to the group, and they are people of value. And if they're not there, they're missed. You find all kinds of people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different their ability to handle social situations. There's some that talk a lot. Perhaps others might say too much. There are others that hardly say anything at all, and you wonder why they're there, but they still get something out of it. You can tell that they get some benefit out of it, just experiencing the situation there with others. And there's that social element that's very quiet. Sometimes it's not something that's overt.
Sometimes there's comfort just in being in a group.
Yes, I think they feel secure. And I think you could almost raise anything, and people have topics that have a very personal nature that involve everything from sexual things to family things, all kinds of things like that.
Passport to Joy and Connection is a program of the Creating Community Wellness Society in cooperation with James Bay New Horizons in Victoria, British Columbia. Passport is supported financially by a grant from the Miroir Foundation of Canada, a charity that invests in initiatives that bring joy and social connections to older adults and alleviate loneliness. Today's musical theme was Trio for Piano, Violin, and Viola by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com and was licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0.